everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to take just a basic summer hat and add an adorable trim. It's a really cute shell stitch trim, and you can see you can make it in any colors that you want to. And we're also going to show you how to make these fun flowers, and you can add 1, 2, 3, or more, and in different colors. Now, it's that time of year when the weather's turning nice and warm, and we want to get outside and have those 15 minutes of sun to catch in that vitamin D. But we don't want to get sunburned, and that's where a nice, inexpensive hat comes in handy. And when you add this decorative little trim, or you can make a bunch and switch them out for all your outfits. That's what I do. Now you can find this simple pattern on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. What you're going to need first, of course, is a hat. And this is just a basic hat, and I purchased these at Walmart a few years ago. You can find these in white and any colors. I've even seen some black ones that are really pretty. And it fits a youth to adult size, about 24 inches around. And you can adjust the pattern if you want to make it smaller or bigger to fit different size hats. You may want to make some for the little girls in your house as well for their Easter hats. And I'll explain to you how to adjust the pattern a little farther on in the video. I'm going to be using this yarn. This is just some leftover ombre pink and purplish color that I have. And I think I make a really pretty band, and I'm going to make 3 flowers to go on the hat. But you can use any medium weight number 4 yarn that you want to. You can use an acrylic, a blend, a wool, a cotton, whatever you have on hand. It doesn't take very much, about 2 ounces, maybe 3 if you want to add a lot more flowers. That's up to you. And you can embellish it however you want to. You can add buttons and beads, lace, whatever that you want to. There's a lot of really cute springy buttons out there like bumblebees and butterflies that would really make this super cute by adding one right in the center of your flowers. That's up to you. Use your imagination. Just remember, we're going to be using a medium weight number 4 acrylic yarn for our demonstration. We're going to be stitching today with an H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle for weaving in your ends and attaching your flowers, and then you'll need your scissors. The hat band can also be used as a headband, by the way. Now, in order to make the hat band bigger, because the hat band measures about 24 inches and will fit the basic sun hat. If you want to make it smaller or even bigger, you're going to need to stitch your chains in multiples of 6 plus 2. And so for today, since we're doing the size that we're doing, we're going to chain 80 chains. So we're going to begin with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 80 chains. Now I do recommend that you stitch this a little on the loose side, because we're going to be stitching on both sides of that chain. And of course I'll explain that as we go along. So I'm going to chain 80 chains. Something that you can do to help you keep count is chain your 10 chains and add a stitch marker. So now I know I have 10 chains, and I'll add a stitch marker for every 10. That way I don't have to keep recounting my chains. I have chained my 80 chains, and so I'm going to go ahead and take out my stitch markers. And again, you don't have to do this. This is just something that helps, so I don't have to keep recounting to see what stitch I'm on, because I need 80 chains for the 24-inch hat band. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to place a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. There's the first, here's the second. We'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. We're going to skip the next 2 chains, and then we're going to place 4 double crochets in this 3rd chain. So there's 1, 2, and so now we're going to place 4 double crochets in the next chain. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And we'll do that 2 more times so that we have 4 double crochets. One, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip the next 2 chains and stitch a single crochet in that next chain. And so we made a single crochet, we skipped 2, we stitched 4 double crochets in the next, we skipped 2, and we stitched a single crochet. And this is our repeat across. Skip 2, stitch 4 double crochets in the next, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we'll skip the next 2 and stitch a single crochet in the next. We'll skip the next 2 stitches, or 2 chains, which chains are stitches, and then we'll stitch 4 double crochets in the next. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here we go. Skip 2 and single crochet in the next. And this is how it should look. It should be a row of shell stitches with single crochets in between. All right, let's do a few more just to make sure that you understand how it's going to work. We're going to skip 2, stitch 4 double crochets in the next. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's our shell stitch. We're going to skip the next 2 chains and stitch a single crochet in the next. Then we'll skip the next 2 chains and stitch 4 double crochets in the next. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll skip the next 2 chains and stitch a single crochet in the next. All right, so just so we understand, single crochet, skip 2 chains, 4 double crochets in the next to make our shell stitch, skip 2 chains, single crochet in the next, and repeat. And we'll repeat this all the way across our chain till we reach the end of our chain. I have completed my row, stitching my 4 double crochets as a shell stitch, skip 2, single crochet, skip 2, and repeat. And you're going to have 13 shell stitches with those single crochets in between. You're going to end on a single crochet, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to turn and work back down those chain stitches. We'll stitch a single crochet in that first single crochet. We'll skip those 2 chains, and that puts us in the center of the shell stitch from the previous row. So we'll stitch 4 double crochets in that chain. We'll skip those 2 chains and stitch a single crochet in the single crochet. We'll skip those 2 chains and stitch a shell stitch in the next chain, which again puts us at the center of the shell stitch from the previous row. We'll skip the 2 chains and single crochet in the single crochet. And see how that looks? Isn't that beautiful? We've got shell stitches on both sides. We've got our single crochets on both sides of our chain, and it makes a really pretty band. All right, let's continue across. We'll skip the next 2 chains and we'll place our shell stitch, which is our 4 double crochets in that next chain. And that's how you know you're doing it right, if you're in the center of that shell stitch from the previous row. Skip those 2 chains, single crochet in the single crochet, skip the 2 chains, and 4 double crochets in the next, which is our shell stitch. One more. We'll skip the 2 chains and single crochet in the single crochet. And let me lay that out so you can see how pretty that looks. And we'll continue this all the way across our hat band. I've completed stitching my shell stitches and single crochets on the back side of the chain, which is called working on the opposite or other side of the chain. We completed our last shell stitch and then stitched a single crochet in the first single crochet. We're going to tie off our yarn, but I want you to leave about 10 or 12 or 14 inches so that you can use that to attach that to the other side as well as the hat if you want to tack it down. So let's go ahead and just tie that off. This is the hat that I'm going to be using for this beautiful hat band. And so I'm going to make sure that it fits around. It fits perfect. All right, so I'm going to take this, be careful not to twist it. Put the 2 ends together, and I'm just going to tie a knot. Now you can use your needle if you want to and weave that in together, but I just like to tie a quick knot, and then I'll tie a second one. That's going to hold that. And also, this is where I'm going to be putting my flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off one of the strings, and I'm going to leave the other one. All right, so I'll put my band on my hat, and this is going to be the front of my hat where I'm going to add my flowers. Now, if you're only going to use this one band on this one hat, I suggest taking your needle, threading that tail on, and then looping it through the holes in the hat like this. And we're going to go around that little piece of fabric and go back in. And that's going to keep that hat band in place. If you're going to make several hat bands to use for one hat, which I often do, depending on what color of clothes I'm wearing that day or where I'm going, then don't tack it down, just leave it together. That way you can slip it on and off if you want to. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tie this in, make sure it's going to stay put. All right, and then we'll just cut that off. Now, if you wanted to add a bow, a ribbon, lace, whatever you wanted to, you certainly could. I'm just going to add a couple of flowers. I've already got 2 made here. And I'm going to make a third one in this lighter pink to show you how to make our 6-petal flower to add to your hat. To make the flower, we're going to begin with a slip knot. We're going to chain 5. We're going to join this chain 5 into a circle by putting the tail of yarn over our hook and pulling that through. We'll snug this down and tie that slip knot. We're going to go in and pull up a loop and just chain 1. And now we're going to place 12 half double crochets in this chain 5 loop. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you will notice that I'm stitching over this tail of yarn. And we're doing that because we're going to use that to close up that hole when we're done. Alright, so we have 6, so here's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and this will be 12. Alright, so we're going to join to this first half double crochet. There we go, with a slip stitch. And we're going to go ahead and chain 3 because we're going to need that for our next row. We'll turn this over, pull that yarn, and we'll grab our needle and go ahead and close this off. And as I always say at this point, you're going to need to weave this in anyway, so let's go ahead and close up that hole by stitching around those stitches, gathering it closed. We don't want a hole in the center of our flower. Alright, so once our hole is closed in the center of our flower, there we go, we'll just go up a stitch and then turn it back the way we came a couple of times to make sure that's going to stay put. Nobody wants the center of their flower opening up. Now, if you would prefer to do the magic circle at that point, you certainly can. I just prefer this method for this pattern. Alright, so now we've chained 3. In the next stitch, we're going to stitch 3 triple crochets. Alright, and so what you'll do is you'll put 2 wraps around your hook. You'll go in the next stitch and pull up a loop. There'll be 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, go through the second 2, yarn over, and go through the third 2. And then we'll do this 2 more times in this same stitch. So we've chained 3, then we put 3 triples in the next stitch. We're going to chain 3. We're going to slip stitch in that same stitch. Then we'll slip stitch in the next and chain 3. There's our first petal. Now we're going to place 3 triples in the next stitch. Three triples, chain 3, slip stitch in the same stitch, and then slip stitch in the next stitch, and chain 3. So now we have 2 petals made. So now I have 3 petals made, and I need to make 3 more petals. Now I have 6 petals made, and after you've done your chain 3 and slip stitched in the same stitch, you're going to slip stitch in the bottom of the chain 3 that we began, and cut your yarn, which I've already cut mine, and tie off. Now, we've already weaved in the center, and so we're going to use this one. So you're going to need about 8 or 10 inches to sew that onto our hat band. All right, and we're going to put them on just like this. So here is my hat with my hat band already attached. And remember, the front of the hat is where we attached the ends of our hat band together and where we're going to put our flowers. Unless you want that to be the back of your hat, where you want your flowers in the back. Alright, so I went ahead and threaded my needle with the tail of yarn from the darker pink, and I'm going to put it right in the center. Alright, so I'm going to go through the hat and sew it on. Now, if you're going to change this out, you'll want to take your hat band and sew your flowers just to the hat band so that it's removable. That's up to you how you want to do that. I'm just going to go in and out of the holes of my hat and sew that in place. Now, since this is going to be a permanent flower on your hat band, if you want to use a fabric glue to attach those flowers and that hat band, you can do that as well. That's totally up to you. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and tie this one off. And again, you can use a little fabric glue if you want on your knots. Now, I do not recommend using hot glue, and I always get this question, and there's two reasons. One, acrylic is meltable, but also if you're going to be wearing this hat out in the sun, that hot glue is plastic, and when it's out in the hot sun, it's going to get soft and melty, and your flowers might fall off. Alright, so I'm going to place this one right next to that one. I've threaded it onto my needle, and I'll just do the same thing, and I want them up close. I'm going to get them right up close to each other, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go in and out, and again, if this is a permanent flower on your hat, you can use fabric glue. Trying to get through there. There we go. And you'll notice I'm coming up and I'm going down into the center of that flower. And I do that so that it resembles the stitches that are already there. I come up on the edge and go in the center. And once I've done that enough where I feel like it's going to stay, I go underneath and just make some stitches. So that's going to hold. And like I said, a little dab of fabric glue will make that stick if you're worried about it coming undone. Alright, now I'm going to put the third flower on, and I'm going to put it right up next to this one, and I think that's going to look real pretty. And I'll sew it on exactly the same way as I did the other one. I've got all three of my flowers attached, and also my hat band all around the edge. It looks really pretty, and I think this is going to become one of my favorites. One thing you can do if you want to add some buttons or beads, gems, you can do that. You can add any embellishments that you want. I really like it like it is. Now, as far as fabric glue, this is what I always use. It's called Aleene's No Sew Fabric Glue. You can find this at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann's, Walmart, or any place that sells craft supplies. It works really nicely. It does take about 30 minutes to dry, so once you glue with it, leave it alone. And I like to take a little bit and put it on those knots and let it dry, and it'll keep those from coming undone on your hat. Isn't that pretty?